it's nice to meet all of you. I'm really excited for all of you with all these projects. Reading through all your applications, I was like so inspired to hear your ideas about what you want to do here in Chattanooga, which is just like awesome for me because, you know, I want to see all these new ideas, but then I also want to see them succeed and, you know, have data around, you know, what kind of impact they have. So I just have one slide on what we're going to cover today. And basically today is about getting us all on the same page. You know, some of us may have had some experience with program evaluation or metrics or outcomes measurement or all kinds of different ways to call it. So today is really about getting on the same page about what we're going to be doing here during this pilot project or pilot period for your projects. So we're going to talk about why we want to do this. Sometimes that's a question for people who, you know, you come into this world with a heart and an idea and you want to do this and you're like, well, why would we need a spreadsheet for this? You know. So we're going to cover some of the whys around it, and we're going to cover some of the how around it. So hopefully I've made you know, some simplification so that it's really straightforward for you guys, really easy for us to go through the process together. And of course, I'm here to support you guys along the way. And then, you know, ultimately, part of the question is, well, how can the results of what we end up doing be used? And that goes back to why we want to measure it, right? So we'll talk a little bit about some ideas, and Abby mentioned some. So like, if you want to get future funding, sometimes it's nice to have some evidence that, you know, well, I piloted it and here's what happened and that kind of thing. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So we'll talk about logic models. That's kind of the main first half of what we're talking about today. I see somebody who knows what that is.
I have an MPA, so yeah.
Okay, cool. I was explaining this to my dad yesterday and he was like, what? But yeah, so
It's the most fun ever.
And then we're going to start to think about some of the outcomes you'll measure. This actually is a bit of an overreach. We're not going to identify the outcomes we're going to measure today. We're just going to start to think about them. We're going to have a little case study of a program that we're going to go through, and so that you have an idea of how you can approach yours when we get to that point. Anything else I want to cover?
Rebecca, what did we decide was the timeline today?
Timeline, what, hour and a half?
Hour and a half?
Yeah.
Yep.
And we'll,
So,
yeah, we
just
got
so everybody knows. So we'll be out here about 1:30.
Right. Cool. All right, any questions so far? All right. So first I want to know who you guys are because I haven't met you all. I know you guys have interacted a little bit and maybe know each other from before, but just if you guys can just give me your name, the name of your project and kind of the ultimate goal of your project, what you want to accomplish. And then any experience that you've had with evaluation or any of those words, they all kind of mean similar things. So evaluation, metrics, outcomes measurement, outcomes monitoring, program evaluation, et cetera, et cetera. So let me know what experience you've had with that, if any. And we'll start over here.
I'm Katie Carter. I'm with Full Circle Teaching Arts Program, CERN Arts. And we're kind of combining all our talents to work on a program at Blooming Pot, where we bring the kids and the parents together to do some art programs and some nutrition programs, just to really enrich and nurture that creative spark in their lives and help them see how they can continue that, you know, ongoing. Of course, for all of the improvements that arts can do for your life. I have not really done anything with evaluation since my BA in psychology 15 years ago, so I haven't figured out how to, you know, transform that into what we're doing. So great work with this. Great.
My name is Mia Hansford, and I'm a visual artist and a writer, and I work with the kids at Blooming Pot. We did some super Keller Donaldson. So when we measured that, we looked at our beginning and our ending drawings, and the beginning and drawings in our whole project. So we measured growth in a very vague, semi-artistically worded way. Oh, these are much better, right? So we've got a lot. I'm really excited to learn more.
That's great.
Sharon's going to set up.
Cool.
I'm Katie Smith, and I'm with the Chattanooga School Guide, and that is an online guide and resource for parents and community members to have a one-stop shop for looking for the right school for their child, public school. And I have no experience with those things.
I realized that I sat next to the other Katie to introduce I'm Katie Neal. I teach third grade at Harrison Elementary with these lovely ladies. Our project is one-to-one iPads. Our kids are all getting devices, but we want to make sure that our parents are trained. Most of the iPads are going to go home, and so we're going to have some summer trainings, train the parents, make sure that that homeschool connection is enhanced by technology this year. And as far as the measurement, we do a lot with student level data, just as teachers,
Yeah.
especially third grade teachers at
A
the
lot of
testing
collecting
grade.
it, right? So you're
Right.
testing and
So I'll be interested to see how that kind of data compares to measuring a project.
Okay, cool.
My name's Erin, and what she said.
You're with the same project?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And the same with experience of program leader?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Go ahead.
Kathy Cooley,
Uh-huh.
pretty much the same,
Okay.
just student level evaluation.
Great.
Melissa Brassel. As you know, 22-6, we do some work with teen moms, and this project is Scholars of Tomorrow, and basic goal is just to increase the education taking place in the homes.
And have you had any experience with program evaluation?
Yes,
Okay.
but I usually keep it simple. We do feedback, like survey evaluations on the rating scale, so that I can go right back and say, 93% said this or something, so
Cool.
I don't go beyond
Hey,
that.
that counts.
Yeah.
What is your name and what's your project? I'm sorry.
Melissa Joe Brassel, and it's Scholars of Tomorrow.
Scholars of Tomorrow. That's, your mission and ours is very, very, there's a lot of simpatico, so it'd be nice to talk to you.
Okay,
Sorry.
awesome.
Oh, no worries. Go ahead.
Jean Lawrence, I'm with Journey Educational Services. Our project is called Rights Now. We're working to educate parents of students with disabilities, what their rights are, based on the IDEA's rights booklet. Just, what they have a right to ask for, things like that, going through that and explaining it to them, make sure they understand it before the school year really gets underway. And I have experience with measuring outcomes from other agencies and other events. A few of my own, but I'm really interested in delving deeper into it and getting more feedback to keep this project going long term.
Cool. Back here in the corner.
My name's Nick. I'm here representing the Fergus Place Neighborhood Association, and I run Chick-fil-A on Premier
Okay.
Road. And it's the Summer of the Lorax is our project, and we're laser focused on getting parents to read to their children more. That's the point of our project. We have a set metric of ability to read at the third grade level by third grade. That's a very long timeline since we're starting with kindergartners.
Right.
So I'll be interested to try and see what we do in the interim. I have lots of experience with internal feedbacks, loops at a restaurant, external customer scores, all kinds of spreadsheets and
So
ways
you
to
kind of come
measure.
from it from like a business metrics kind of world, yeah.
But ours is got relationships on one end and results on the other side, and so everything in between is really what my job is.
Right.
So I'm really interested in figuring out how we can measure these things before third grade to try and get more people aboard and do it every year.
Awesome. Great.
My name is Guillermo Trujillo. The project I'm working on is Amistad, means French and Spanish. And the goal of the project is basically to help the relationship between the Hispanic families in inner city schools, specifically Orchard Knob Middle School. I'm a school-based therapist for a company called Centerstone, and I'm based off of Orchard Knob Middle for this coming school year. So the goal is to try to have a counseling group for males, specifically acculturation issues. Some of the kids that are in Orchard Knob Middle have just recently come from Guatemala, Mexico, different places, and just social skills, emotional regulation skills. And with that, the second part is building relationships with their parents, teaching them how to be more in tune with the school progress of their kids, and so trying to better the relationship between the school staff and these Hispanic parents. So as far as experience with this, I don't know if this really counts, but I guess as a therapist, we do this with our clients,
Right, yeah.
Measurable results when you're doing treatment planning So I guess some, but trying to measure the success, the impact of a project, it's new because this is my first time.
Okay.
Starting up a project like this.
Yeah, so one thing, because that's the world I come from too, as a psychologist, you can kind of think of like, okay, all of those things that you give your individual clients, you're basically doing that in aggregate. So like, what is the, instead of like the individual level, what is like the program level look like, or the project level, that kind of thing. So, bit of an aside, but go ahead. Sorry? Go ahead.
My name's Ann Cater, and I'm also with the Blended Pot Group.
Okay, great.
More kind of a wind at the back kind of thing. I'm the president of Board of COPAC, so I'm here to support the teaching artist.
Great.
I'm also very interested in impact, because I realize especially when you're dealing with very young children, a lot of times things that you don't do, you won't see the results maybe until they're 50 or 60 years old.
Right.
So how in the world do you measure the impact, for example, of an arts integrated program? Except, if they look like they're happy or they're thriving, or you can see, some way to demonstrate that their projects have more integrity to them or whatever, So it's just very difficult to put your finger on
Right.
that. So I'm extremely interested to
Great.
learn how you can dig into that a little bit.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm Stacy Barton, and I am a kindergarten teacher at Red Bank Elementary.
Okay.
And Becky and I, our project is trying to reach families of not the incoming students this year, but the following school year.
Okay.
And we're focusing on those children that do not attend pre-K programs.
Okay.
And families that necessarily wouldn't have resources to provide their children with the types of activities that are important to do before they enter kindergarten. So we're trying to set up a program where we have the parents come in with their children, and we first teach the parents types of activities in their daily lives, trying to teach them how simple it is to teach them basic skills before they come. And we're planning to provide them also with some materials, so they have them, and when they walk out from each meeting, yes, they have what they need. And the children will also be working with some of our other teachers while we're working with the parents. They'll be exposed to the activities before then the parent takes them home, and we'll model with the children or the parents how that interaction should look or could look. But as far as measuring, other than student data, I haven't had any experience with that.
Okay.
So I'm Becky. I teach with Stacy at Red Bank. And just to piggyback on what she said, we're also going to have weekly texts that we send to parents.
Okay.
So they're actually going to sign up on a Remind Me site so that we can send them a text.
Reminders to like do the activities.
Hey, have your child find everything red in the store today when you go grocery shopping, or just as simple as that. And as far as measurements go, I did some with my thesis, and my thesis was on student readiness.
Okay.
And we actually did a similar thing, but we did it with my kindergarten classroom, and then a different class did not use it, so we measured.
So you have like a control over that.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Great.
Hi, my name is Mario DeAndre Brooks. I'm with COPAC and Full Circle Teaching Artists. Our program is called Cultivating the Essential Spark. I'm actually one of the teachers at Blooming Pie Daycare and pre-K. Our goal for our project is basically to fill a void in public schools with the lack of art, and to basically integrate arts with core education, and to build up basically art enthusiasts from a very young age, because at a certain age you kind of lose track of that unless it's something that you're actually into. And as far as measuring impact, we in our training program did a lot of evaluations amongst the different types of artists in our program. And when we were actually with the kids, older kids, Blooming Pie, I'm not sure how we're going to measure the impact, but with the older kids, there's an assessment part of each lesson that we create, that we ask certain essential questions and see how they grasp the concepts. It's a little different with older kids, so.
I'm Jennifer Gerke, and I'm with Barber Academy of Fine Arts, and our program is called the Parent Academy, and our goal is to provide the parents with an understanding of what's being taught in the classroom and how it's being taught, and to help them take that home so that they can teach their children at home and have an understanding of how they need to teach their children at home and how to develop a space, that accommodates their child for study at home. And we're doing this with 6 after-school sessions that are separated by grade level. We're gonna do 4 the first semester and 2 after Christmas break, just as reinforcement.
Smart.
And then,
As far as program evaluation goes, I'm not sure about this. I've been there a few years, and really the only evaluation that I've seen, that I've done personally, is with parent surveys, which we do a couple of times a year,
great. Well, it's really nice to meet all of you. It's really nice to put names with faces, because I've seen your applications and read descriptions of your program. And, so it's really nice to see you all, and I look forward to getting to know all of you better as we work towards outcomes. And one thing I was kind of thinking as you guys were talking is everyone has kind of their elevator pitch description of your program. Sorry, I also have co-stars in the back of my mind, so this is also where this is coming from. But by the end of this, I'm hoping that the way you talk about the impact will also be a part of that description when you tell people about your program and what your project. Sorry, I'm using program and project interchangeably, but so you'll be able to talk about the impact when you're describing your project to other people. So that's one of my goals for this process with you guys. Let me also mention, feel free to ask questions along the way, like you don't have to wait till the end or anything like that, just, All right, so let's get started. What is evaluation? Sometimes it's this big scary thing, sometimes it's just, hey, I did a survey, hey, I did this and that. So there really is, it's kind of a catch-all term for a lot of things, but really kind of the gist of it is, it's purposeful and systematic. So it's not, I did this program and then let me just see what happened at the end of it. It's you start at the beginning of it to really decide what you want to know from the process. And the point is to document the effectiveness or the impact of programs, which is what you guys are doing. We want to know what the impact is of each of your projects. Establish accountability is another reason that people do evaluations. So like, for example, if you're, if you get like a federal grant, let's say, I've done a few of those, and so, establishing accountability with them, they want to know what you did with the funds and if it had any impact. So, in the federal grant world, that's a given. You're going to have to evaluate your project. So the idea here is to kind of start introducing that so that you're used to that kind of thing, because a lot of funders are eventually going to start requiring it. And then to identify areas needing change and improvement. This is one of my favorite ways to use evaluation, because at the end of your measurement cycle, these are a pilot, but maybe you can take some of the information that you learn, feed it back into your program or project, make some changes, see if that works or if it doesn't, or if maybe it'll help make something better or help tweak something that wasn't quite right the first time, and then go through the process again and also measure that. And then it's cyclical. So that's kind of what you're seeing over here on the right. This is the process of evaluation. The assessment really is the assessment of your program, which is where we're starting today. So this is determining what your program actually is. And you guys all have a pretty good idea of what it is. And we'll really map that out today. And then you design your evaluation process, which is something I'll do with each of you. And you'll figure out what you're going to measure, how you're going to measure it. And then you put it into action. So you collect your data. That's really the biggest part of that's what it is. You collect your data. That's that step. And then the analysis and reporting. So once you've collected all your data, you analyze it, or I'll analyze it, determine what we've learned from this particular data collection cycle. And then communication. So that will be reporting to Causeway. That'll be something that you guys can report out when I talk about how you can talk about your impact. That's you communicating the impact of your program. So that's that part of it. And then again, you can start the whole process back over with assessments. So now you have your evaluated project. You can think about what you might want to do differently this time. Go through the same process again. Do you want to ask the questions the same way? Do you want to change them up? That kind of thing. Did you learn something new you need to ask about? Go back through the process again. Does that make sense? Cool. Okay, so keep this cycle in mind, because I'm gonna show you another cyclical thing that this is a part of. So I'll point that out when we get to it, but this evaluation process is a part of your larger program life cycle process. We'll get to that in a minute. Why is it a good idea to evaluate? I was gonna ask you guys for some answers that I already have some up here. But if you guys have any others that are already, that aren't already up here, we covered some of this. You know, you want to describe the impact of your program. You want to know why your program is good. That's always a really nice thing to do, just to know what your program's strengths are, especially if you have a program that, it's the only program like it, right? So maybe there's, you have a real strength because you offer this service or this series of workshops, whatever it might be, that is unique and different and needed. So if you really know what your program's strengths are, it also sets you up to, argue why you should get more funding later on, for example. Identify and address opportunities for improvement. This is what I was talking about with like it being cyclical, where you can feed back what you learned into your program and do the cycle again. Justify use of resources. This is the accountability piece. So a funder might want to know what you did with their funds. So it's a good reason to evaluate a program. And then just in general, there's an increased emphasis on accountability these days. So you want funds to be well used and well spent. So evaluation can help, provide data for that. So it looks at the results of your investment, time, and expertise and energy, and compares those results with what you said you wanted to achieve. So at the outset of this process, we're going to be identifying some goals and some ways to measure progress towards those goals. So, and then at the end, we're going to measure them, and then at the end, we're going to see, did we reach those? Did we do what we said we wanted to do? Question?
One important thing that we should stress is sometimes what feels good doesn't work, and sometimes what doesn't feel good works.
That's accurate, yeah.
And you don't, unless you do this right, you just don't know.
That's true.
And spending money, that's a very important thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a very important point. And that is one of the reasons why it's a really good thing to have data around what your activities are, because you can do something that's great and it feels great and it's, full of heart and passion and all of that, but at the end of it, if you wanted to change something in the community and that thing isn't changed, then as good as it felt, you still didn't reach your goal, right? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so here's the, go ahead.
Say you have achievement, you have achievement in an area that you did not identify. You can't measure it, you didn't start out with ways to measure it.
Yes.
So what do you do?
You measure it the next time. It's true. No, that is what it is. I understand what you're saying. Like, it's frustrating to kind of come out with something that was unexpected, but that's why evaluation isn't just a one-time thing. It's why it really, in some form or another, it doesn't always have to be some huge formal things, but that's why it's cyclical,
You got a big bonus in an area that you weren't looking for, and it was like all over the place.
Yeah.
We saw increased confidence in the kids. Like
Yeah.
verbal articulation of how they were doing that.
I think in those kind of situations too, you can look for anecdotal pieces of data. Like if it was something that you didn't have a structure to and measure, you can go back and you can sort of talk to those people and get some anecdotal pieces because you knew that it was a positive.
Like case studies, like have a case study, like if you're collecting data and you're dealing with numbers or increases, you can maybe also have like a sidecar assessment, like case studies.
Yeah.
And
Oh, absolutely.
That provides a space for anecdotal.
Yeah. And a lot of, what that's making me think of is I don't know if any of you have had to do this, but a grant report for kind of what I was talking about, the accountability piece. Funders are different. The ones I'm talking about really like data, but not everybody's the same. So they may want data, but they also may want that well, tell me the story that's personal and, tell me the story of that one kid who really was impacted. and they do want that too. So I think that might be part of what you're talking about. And I think, yeah, that absolutely has a place for sure. But if it's all only that, right, so you do need, you know, independent, you need balance and maybe it shifts one way or the other a little bit more, but, so we're focusing on the data piece just because that's probably like the part I do. But you're right, it takes both for sure. Okay, so this is that other circle, cycle, whatever that I was referring to, and so basically what you can do is the other cycle that I was showing you, which was the process of evaluation, you can just plug that in right here. So that's where that lives, is that other little cycle. But this is your program's life cycle. And sorry, these don't actually line up, so let's start with it. Actually, I'm not even, because I already covered this, so I'm gonna leave that alone. That is that cycle that fits here. Does that make sense? I'm sorry, that's a little confusing slide, which somehow I didn't notice until I was up there. But anyway, this is the life cycle of your program or project. So, in a way, it starts in the same place with refine. We're going to start here. Refine, I'm going to say refine / assess. That first step and the other one was assess. So basically, it's all about just defining what you need, which is something we're going to focus a lot on today. So what we're talking about is refining what you mean by your program. And you all have pretty solid program descriptions. I imagine you describe them the same way every time, et cetera, right? So you all have a good idea of what your program or project is already. So you got that step. Next, you plan. So how are we going to implement this project? You know, what do I need to be able to implement it? Do I need books? You need books. You know, do I need iPads? You know, you've got iPads. You need to figure out what you need to be able to implement it. Then you organize, you actually get ready to implement it. So you've got all your ingredients, and then you move to, okay, so what do I actually need to do? What actions do I need to take? What steps do I need to take to implement this program? Then you implement it, which is the part where you start doing the activities of the program. And then you evaluate it, which you've already established your evaluation plan, kind of in here and in here. So, and this too is cyclical. So after you evaluate it, you might learn something and then you refine it. You refine your program. You might decide, oh, this particular part of it didn't really have the effect that I wanted, so maybe I'll try this instead. Or we have this unintended consequence, confidence is a really way to say it, but you know, unintended result that was confidence. Maybe we want to cultivate that. What other things can I do to increase confidence in these kids? Does that make sense? So in terms of program evaluation, which I keep calling it evaluation because that's the world I come from, but metrics, measurement, outcomes, impact, et cetera, et cetera. So evaluation. There are several tools that are kind of common to every evaluation. Hopefully some of these look familiar, if not, it's totally fine. Logic models. How many of you are familiar with logic models? Anybody? A couple here and there? Okay, that's what we're doing today, so this is gonna be great. Evaluation plan. You'll actually have a written plan for what you're gonna measure, how you're gonna measure it, where it's gonna come from, and I'll help you develop that. And the reason those two are in red are those are the two things you're gonna do during this process. The other ones I'll create and I'll do for you, but the other parts of it are the data collection tools. So like, if you need to give out a survey, like I'll help you create that and you'll use that to collect information. Data analysis tools, big old ugly Excel spreadsheets, you guys never even have to see, so cool. And then reports I'll also create. And let me actually mention this. So there will be a report that has everybody's information in it, but each of you will actually get a little fact sheet that has all of your results on it. So you'll be able to use that however you want, like on a website or to hand out. You know, people want to know what kind of impact your program had, that kind of thing. So you'll have that as well at the end of the process.
So it's a great tool for attracting better and better teachers, better and better artists.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Say, you want to make a change? You want to help make change? This is what we're doing.
That's a really good point. And actually, I didn't include that in my reasons to evaluate, but attracting talent to your program, attracting people who say, you know, like who might want to work with you, you know, like what does your program do? What's it about? You can actually say, well, this is the impact we've had, you know, and that might help them be like, oh, cool, I want to be a part of that because it's obviously working, or, you know. And then, yeah, of course, there's ways to analyze the end of it. But sorry, the clip art just gets weirder from here. So stay with me, it's fine.
Question.
Yeah,
So just to clarify, you're gonna take whatever surveys we complete and do all the yuck work for
Yep.
us.
I sure am.
Are you gonna, like, whatever Excel formulas you use, like, you let us know so we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
So
I'd just be interested to know, like, exactly which tools you use.
Yeah, absolutely. I will do that. And so during this process, I'm going to work really closely with you guys. Like, first we're going to break into small groups, and then those will be for the next couple of meetings, and then I'll even meet with each of your projects one-on-one. So during all of those types of things, I'll give you guys a lot of support, and like to whatever degree you need or want that information, like, yeah, you know. So you want to know how to track X, Y, and Z, like I'll help you figure out how to track it, and like you can have that spreadsheet and you'll be able to like use it later, etc. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because our project lead's not here today. She's getting prepared to play with zoo animals. I'm jealous of Al.
I kinda wanna do that.
But right? I was
Yeah.
like, should I skip the lunches? Go play with zoo animals? But and she doesn't have as much experience with this, and I know she'd be really interested to kind of
We're
walk
gonna make
through
this
that.
the presentation and
Yes.
also videoing. Cool. This for anybody who isn't here.
So we are about to walk through a logic model. We're going to learn what that is, and we're going to walk through it, and we're going to use, let's choose Sarah. We're going to use Sarah's projects for our logic model that we're about to create, okay? Does anybody want to read that? So I can take a break from talking for a second? Okay, go for it.
Case study, food pantry project. Sarah received a grant from Feeding America to operate a mobile food pantry in Hamilton County. She'll partner with churches, schools, and community centers. She can bring the truck to these locations on a fixed schedule. She'll also operate a Twitter account and a Facebook page, which will, 1, tell the public the truck's location, and 2, teach the community about food insecurity. As a result of her activities, she hopes to inform the community, increase access to food for low-income families, and drastically reduce hunger in Hamilton County.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to keep this in mind, and I probably should have printed this out and didn't think of that till now. But I can always come back to this slide as we're talking about it. But so this is her project. She's been funded. Her main activities are going to be a mobile food truck, so it's not a centralized location, it's actually a truck that goes out into the community that acts as a food pantry that people can come to. So that's one activity, and then she's gonna have a Twitter account and a social media accounts to let everybody know where she is and to provide information to the public about food insecurity, maybe some statistics, articles, whatever she finds that she thinks would be interesting and helpful. And then her goals are to inform the community about food insecurity and increase access, and then ultimately reduce hunger in Hamilton County. Does that all make sense? Sound like a good program? I'm all for it. I like the idea. So, this is a logic model, okay? So think of it as a recipe for your program. So what it's gonna be is, it has several different columns, and so, let me go ahead and say, like, these will look a little bit different. Like, if you Google logic model, like, people change them around a little bit. It doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. There's no right or wrong answers, etc. Like, it's basically just a tool for you to understand the what of your program. And then this can help guide later on some decisions you'll make, and we'll talk about that. So, can everybody see this okay? So there are...
I can't see the titles very well.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay.
It's inputs.
Okay, so the first one is inputs, and those are resources that are needed to operate your program. So if this were a recipe, this would be your list of ingredients, right? So all the things that actually go into the operation of your program. So maybe you need staff, maybe you need volunteers, maybe you need a building, maybe you need funding, maybe you need time, et cetera, et cetera. So this is your list of ingredients. Does that make sense? So like if you're making a cake, you've got flour, eggs, butter, some other stuff. I don't know. Cool on inputs? Make sense? We're gonna go through this a couple of times so it'll kind of start to make sense, I think. Activities is the second column, and that is what your program does. So the first is what goes into your program, and this is what your program does. Activities are what your program does. So these are delivering services, conducting a workshop, what else? Let's see. Delivering counseling. I mean, if you have examples, feel free, but I'll also be asking you for examples later on. But does that make sense? So it's kind of the activities of your program. So providing brochures, providing training. In your cake recipe, this is your preheat the oven to 350. Mix these things together, put it in a pan, put it in the oven, right? That makes sense? Okay. The next one is outputs. Okay? So this is what you expect to happen as a result of your inputs and activities. Outputs are what you expect to happen as a result of your inputs and activities. So you put your cake in the oven. What you expect to happen is that you get a cake, right? So that's like the expected result. And that's why it's called a logic model, because it logically flows from one thing to the next, theoretically. So in terms of a program or a project, the outputs are like you deliver the amount of product or service that you said you were going to deliver. So like the number of people who showed up as a result of you putting on a workshop, the number of visitors to your website. I already gave one away, but yeah, so those are the kinds of things you're looking at. Like outputs are what you would expect to happen as a result of the inputs and activities of your program. You with me? So that's different from outcomes. And I'm going to go ahead and say outcomes / impact, because sometimes they're talked about interchangeably. That's why that little slash is there. Your outcomes are a little bit different. These are what you hope will happen as a result of all of your activities and your outputs. So you put in all these things, but what actually is the impact of all of these things, right? So you hope your participants benefit in very specific ways, which you've already thought of. These are typically broken down into short, medium, and long-term outcomes. So these are really, this is kind of where we're focusing this process, but you need to know it in the context of the whole thing. So we're looking at outcomes. So in your cake recipe, your inputs were your list of ingredients, your activities were, the things you do, the cooking. The output is the meal or the cake, and the outcome, you hope, is that everybody's really happy because there's cake, right? So it's kind of a nuance, like there being cake is different from what you hope will actually happen, which is that like everybody's happy there's cake. And then impact is often the same as long-term outcomes. So those are really kind of changes at like the community level or the society level or the policy level. So those are really your big picture kind of outcomes, right? So for a lot of you, I know you're looking at school readiness, right? So every child in Hamilton County will be ready for kindergarten by 2025. That is a long-term impact, long-term outcome. Does that make sense? Like we're not gonna do that by October, like we want to, but we're not. So we're gonna think of that as a long-term outcome. And those things, there are evaluations that do get to that, but this will not be one of them. This is really focused kind of on short-term outcomes. Questions so far? Cool. And then these boxes are here, and they kind of interact with the logic model. Your assumptions, you just need to know what they are. So what are you assuming about the logic of your program? You're assuming that if parents have training about how to use the iPad, they'll be more likely to use it, right? So those are the kinds of assumptions you're thinking about, you know. You're assuming that if I follow these instructions and add the right amount of vanilla and eggs, my cake will be delicious. You know, like it's just the logical assumptions that you're making that you need to stop and think about. Because you might actually realize like, oh, hey, my assumption about that was off, you know, or, oh, I need to think about this a little bit more, et cetera, et cetera. And then external factors are here because, you know, the world happens outside of your program. So you need to be aware of what factors might influence your outcomes that are separate from your program, right?
The time of day where you have the program implemented, is it really the best time of day to introduce this topic to your constituents?
Yeah, that could be part of it. It's also what might affect your outcomes.
Right.
So like, well actually I'll use you guys as an example because it's a positive example, I like it. The confidence thing, right? So, you know, your program is gonna increase confidence, great, you get to the end of it and yay, all our kids are more confident, awesome. But what if all of your kids also, and without your knowledge, are enrolled in like a self-esteem seminar, you know, like somewhere else, you know what I mean? So like, that also could have had something to do with it, you know. So these are kind of the, no, it's definitely all you guys. But yeah, so it's those things that like might also impact kind of your outcomes, and they're really not to change anything, just for you to be aware of them, that like these things could make a difference, you know. Well, here's one, like your iPads. What if they don't have internet access at home and that's something you need? You know, so that could actually throw a real wrench in your program if that's something that they can't have. So, okay, questions about a logic model?
So like you could make an assumption that you're doing this art thing with them, but if they don't have art materials at home, they don't actually have an opportunity to practice in between the times you're reading.
That's true.
So that might be an external factor, but it also might be an unidentified need for resources.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that could be a thing that you learn that you could do differently next time. You know what I mean? Like, cool. Look for a grant that can help provide
take-home grants.
Take-home stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Other questions or comments or thoughts? Okay, so we are going to walk through Sarah's program and fill out our logic model. So if you remember Sarah's case study, everybody take a refresher look at that. So you're going to have to remember some details. Good? Okay, so told you the clip art was going to get weird. What are Sarah's inputs? I think I might write these. Or does anybody want to volunteer to write while I'm talking? Sure. Any teacher?
No.
You're like, it's summer.
I don't know how to write.
I don't. You're on vacation.
Okay, so I want to ask you guys what Sarah's inputs into her food pantry program are, and like these are examples that like literally some of them might be this.
Food.
Food, yeah, absolutely.
The truck.
The truck, yep.
What about the
Websites.
social media?
Yep, yeah, website, social media accounts.
Or partners.
Partners, yeah, so like churches, schools, etc. Sorry?
The volunteers.
The volunteers, yeah. Time.
Stores.
Right, a place to store it all. Yep.
Just the food itself.
Yeah, the food.
Because you get the food.
Gas.
Gas. I didn't think of that one. That's a good one. Insurance. Yeah. Actually,
Permits.
there's a lot to think about.
Food service permits.
Permits. Yep. Thanks, guys. I'm glad this is not my project.
And the teachers want to correct my spelling, you're gonna have ample opportunity.
We're on vacation.
Yeah,
we don't do that
They
What
can't
about,
spell
funding?
anymore.
I was already checking.
Funding. Yeah.
We'll put that.
That's what we have here. I'm like,
Anything else? For inputs, the ingredients that go in, like our dear Swedish chef friend here with his burrito.
Would families be input?
Sorry, which one?
Families.
Families?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've seen it included, yeah, like the recipients of the services. I've seen it included sometimes in the inputs column, but because it is part of kind of the activities and the outputs, because you're thinking about like, I'm jumping ahead, but like numbers of family, et cetera, like it typically kind of lives there a little bit more, yeah. All right, so do we want to move on to activities? We're gonna start a second column. All right, and remember this is where we cook our meal. So what are the activities of our food pantry?
So updating.
Sorry?
Drive to a location.
Okay, so driving, yeah.
Updating the website.
Updating the website.
Collecting materials, collecting
Let's do
food, raw materials.
Yeah.
Are they cooking? Is it like
Yeah,
perishable stuff?
distributing.
Start cooking here.
Are they
I think she's just
cooking,
yeah,
or
like,
it's like
non-perishables.
bags of food?
Scheduling.
So
Scheduling, yeah.
distributing.
Yes. Distributing the actual food.
Oh, marketing, like
Yes.
letting people know where to come, when to come, which that may be part of like Facebook or whatever, but like.
Well, I mean that's an activity of it for sure.
Well, finding out where she's going, like the schedule
Deciding
of
on
where.
schedule.
Scheduling.
Yeah, so scheduling, yeah.
Any kind of transaction, I don't know if she's selling or giving or tracking inventory.
Yeah, tracking. maybe.
Yeah, that's good. Tracking inventory. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have to be done for data, right?
Is she keeping track of who gets the food, like
Uh,
to sign in or anything, or they can just
Well,
walk
we're not
to the truck at
considering
every
data
location?
collection a part of the program activities. So we'll leave that out of the logic one, because this is just the program activities, which are separate from the evaluation activities.
Training volunteers.
Yeah, but
Training
you gotta-
volunteers, yeah.
You gotta create your data forms. Like,
Well,
you
but
gotta-
that's not part, that's all related to the evaluation, not the program delivery. So it's a little bit separate. What about, did we talk about, partnering with, schools, churches, actually getting those relationships in place so she can go there?
Cleaning the truck and throwing away spoiled food.
Yeah?
It's
true.
Oh my god, that's so
A good
clever.
hose.
Alright, anything else? The cool thing about these is like, I mean, yeah, maybe we got them all, maybe there's more we can think of, like, it's okay, like, you know, it's, you might not get everything, you might realize something you need to add later. Okay, so the next column then is outputs. This is where you have your meal at the ready. For permit. Okay, so what kinds of things would she expect to happen as a result of the activities of her program?
Number of people served,
I'm sorry, number of people served? Yep,
or, well, I guess families maybe, so
sure,
she.
households, families,
Was she
however you wanna
specific? I
track
can't
it.
remember if she was specific
I don't
about.
think she was, I don't remember.
Families receiving the updated information from
Uh-huh.
the websites.
So maybe visitors to the website?
Likes or followers.
Yeah, increased awareness of
Nope,
insecurity.
nope, nope.
No.
We'll get there. This is just outputs. So this is just to teach you in effect, you're talking about an outcome,
Gotcha.
you're just jumping ahead.
Amount of food given
Uh-huh.
out or needed.
Sites visited.
Uh-huh. Right, so what if she learns in her program that like, well, this particular school tells me never to come, so, you know, that might tell her later on, like, maybe I don't wanna work with them anymore, yeah, so have that in there, so number of sites visited. Any others?
Length of time spent with sites.
Yeah. It's true, like, what if,
Took a really long time at this point.
right,
5
like, what if
minutes
only
is
10
fine.
people show up at this one, but 100 show up at this other one, yeah.
Say miles traveled.
Sure.
Just to-
Yeah, because that'll,
You
you
don't
know,
want it
be
to be too
important for
far behind.
costs and, okay, any others on that?
How many volunteers?
Sorry?
How many volunteers?
What about volunteers?
Like how many
volunteers? Yeah.
do you have?
Actually, yeah, that would be a good one to track because you would hope it would grow over time, right?
Right, because in a sense, your volunteers are also part of the marketing team.
Yep, absolutely they are. Okay, so let's move to outcomes. And remember, these are short, mid, and long, and this first is our long-term impact, hoping to affect change at the policy level. Sorry, I feel like you guys aren't appreciating my speech.
I'm not saying more.
So, what are some of her short-term outcomes that she can expect or hope? This is really more what you hope.
Hunger alleviated?
Is that gonna be short-term? Well, sure. I mean, it's gonna start to be. Yeah, sure.
Smaller numbers then.
But you're gonna be, so the way you might think about it is, yeah, you're alleviating hunger for however many people are showing up.
Okay.
But, okay, so this is where it gets tricky
We'll
because
go
you
back
think
on
about how you measure it because are you eliminating hunger that day, but are you consistently eliminating hunger?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so what might other short-term outcomes be?
Just like daily goals, like how many people were fed today? Or, I mean,
Yeah,
could that
that's
be
good.
just,
Well, but you're going to want to look at that over time. Okay, so let me give you a little hint here. Short-term typically are changes in knowledge, skills, or motivation. So like, for example, a lot of you are doing workshops, right? So you're not going to change necessarily the world in a workshop, but you might change somebody's mind. You know, you might give them more skills. You might change their motivation, for example. So think kind of at that level.
So less food insecurity.
Too big.
Too big?
Too big. Because food insecurity, you're thinking you're going to measure that over time, right?
Okay.
So like, food insecurity in 2017 was lower than it was in 2016.
Gotcha,
Like
okay.
that's how you talk about it. So that really is kind of a
well, people know where to get food.
Yeah, there you go.
people know where to get. Yeah, absolutely. Increase in awareness. So yeah, you've increased awareness in where to get food, right?
Healthy eating choices.
So you're onto something, but midterm are changes in behavior. So,
Okay, so knowledge,
making Chelsea
knowledge,
yeah, an increased knowledge, absolutely, of healthy food choices for sure. So anybody, and the difference here is like anybody who's like joined the gym knows that like when you first join, your motivation's gonna change. So that's short term. But it takes the midterm to change behavior, right? So like it's gonna take a while before it sticks. So that's kind of the difference between those two, right? So short term, change in knowledge, you're gonna increase awareness, you're gonna increase knowledge. You might change attitudes. So like there might be attitudes towards the poor because that's who typically needs a food pantry, and there might, you know, hopefully maybe you change some attitudes around,
Well,
you know.
maybe the people donating the food, they're made that choice to
Yeah,
donate.
so you're gonna want to see, well, but that's kind of an output.
Okay.
So like an increase in donations would be a thing you'd look for, but that's what you would expect as a result of it.
What about maybe the volunteers that are helping on the food truck? Their attitudes are changing about maybe why people need food.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a good one.
What about the trust of the people that are showing up?
Absolutely.
So they have the trust, and the long term would be spreading the trust to.
I think you're thinking midterm because trust isn't gonna happen think about short term as a workshop. Like trust isn't gonna be built in a meeting, right? So that's gonna be repeated, you know. But I think trust is, if we wanna move to midterm outcomes, let's do it. I think increase in trust is a good one. Any other kind of midterm type outcomes? Like,
Well, I don't know necessarily how they measure that there's a hunger, like that there's a lot of people hungry in Chattanooga, that kind of thing. But I guess a midterm could be less people are reporting being hungry, or however they're finding out that these people don't have enough food to eat. Do that make sense?
No, that absolutely makes sense. And you don't necessarily have to think about where am I going to get this data for your logic model. We'll get to that like in the evaluation plan, but so like you don't really have to, but like the question of are people less hungry? Like that's what you would hope, right? So yeah, that would definitely be a mid to long term goal. And like these are a little squishy in case that hasn't been clear. Like I feel like short and mid are pretty clear, like because they're different, but like mid to long can be a little bit different. are a little tricky sometimes. So, yeah, I think absolutely, less hunger. I mean, that's what you want,
less
right?
hunger, yeah.
Sorry.
People reporting more.
Increased participation, yeah, that's kind of an output, because you just want more people showing up, right?
Wouldn't it be like an expectation that the truck's gonna be there for the people in
Yeah.
the community?
So like people coming consistently, yeah, I think,
Expectation, so that's a change, like I think
Yeah.
we're expecting you to show up.
yeah, I think that works. Okay, and then so I'll give you a couple of long-term ones. What was I gonna say? Anyway, so a couple of long-term ones might be like, you're thinking like big community-wide changes, right? So like, maybe there's more funding for food. Maybe we've doubled the number of trucks. Maybe we've, gotten the city on board with what we're doing, and so like everybody's like right now, you know what I mean? So those are really kind of the big, a lot harder to measure sort of things. They can, but we're not gonna get there. Go ahead.
I was thinking, it seems like there's an increased awareness of the benefit of more nutritious foods, a lot of community gardens spring up, for example.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's a big thing to me. It shows impact, because clearly if you value squash and veggies, you can plant them.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So like maybe more availability of fresh, community garden. And I like the community garden model. That makes a lot of sense with what she's trying
Well,
to
there
do.
are more community gardens because
Right, yeah.
I don't mean to say the negative term, but like more copycats.
Yes, no, that's actually a really good indicator that your program is working.
Spreading that.
So yeah. Okay, so this has been Logic Models 101. Any questions about any of it, or any comments, or do you kind of feel like you kind of get a little bit of a grasp on like, and I hope you're thinking a little bit about your own program and where everything goes in your columns. And I'm gonna give you guys a worksheet to take home to start to think about all of your different columns. And then the next time we meet, it'll be in small groups to actually design your logic models for each of your projects. So that's logic models. Yeah. So we're gonna cover one other little thing, which is how do we move these outcomes that we want? How do we actually go about measuring them? And so we're not gonna get there. We're not gonna nail down, data sources and like how are they collected and how do I design my spreadsheet and blah blah blah. But just conceptually, I want to be thinking about how do you develop a good goal, right? Because sometimes evaluators get in trouble because they're like, oh, this is what we want to measure, and then at the end of it, they're like, that's not what I measured at all. So we're trying to avoid that by understanding how you develop a goal. And basically, this is just, some of you may have already heard of this. This is a way to determine whether, to make a goal measurable, essentially.
Yeah.
It has to have 5 characteristics. So this may not be new to you guys, but basically it needs to be specific. They're called SMART goals because it's an acronym. Specific, so your goal should state exactly what is gonna happen. So you're gonna take your outcome, the thing you want to happen, and you're gonna turn it into a goal. So one of her outcomes was an increase in awareness. And maybe she decides to measure that through the number of visitors to her site. Because if they visit, maybe they made an impression, so there's not the greatest impression, but it's close. Okay, so specific. So her goal might be X number of visitors will visit my site in the time frame July to December 2016. Okay? Measurable. Progress towards the goal will be trackable. So same thing, she actually named a number and a time frame. I'm just getting down here. So the goal should have a time frame for completion. She's not gonna say, oh, I wanna increase awareness in the future. She's gonna say, I wanna increase awareness by doing this in this time frame. Exactly. Achievable. She's gonna be realistic about what she can actually do. She's not gonna eradicate hunger in Hamilton County by December. That's a lot of pressure. So she's gonna set a realistic goal. And then relevant, this is important because you need your goal to make sense with the other goals that you have. So you can't say, I'm gonna reduce hunger, but I'm also gonna make sure these people don't have food. You know what I mean? So I know that's an extreme example and not something that would happen, but like when you're planning your goals and when you're identifying them, you need to make sure that like one is not counter to the other, or one is gonna prevent another one from actually being able to be achieved. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm.
What was the yellow one? I can't remember.
Achievable.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So that's just being realistic.
Can you give an example of that?
Of achievable?
No, what you said before.
Oh, relevant? So this is important when you have more than one goal. So making sure that one of your goals is not going to be counter to another. So, let me think. So this could happen. Let's say you serve a lot of communities, right? And so what if one of your interventions or one of your elements of your programs really emphasizes one community kind of at the expense of another, like that sort of thing. If your goal, if your mission really is to serve the whole community, then you need to make sure that your goals aren't doing that. Does that make sense? Okay. Questions about your SMART goals? So I want you to keep this in mind as we're moving from, and this is, since we don't have your logic models yet, this is a little bit of a jump, but keep this in mind as you're moving from outcomes to figuring out how you want to measure those outcomes. And of course, I'm going to be working with you all, but just so we have this frame in mind. Okay, so we kind of did this a little bit, but let's make a SMART goal for her short-term outcome. Community members will increase knowledge about local food deserts. Anybody want to take a stab at it?
Certain amount of visitors to her website.
Okay.
There's shortening time.
Okay. And how do you know specifically that they're going to increase their knowledge?
She can count how many retweets she gets on Twitter. When she
Yeah,
posts
that's
on
another way
Instagram.
to do it, yeah. Okay. How many retweets? Yeah. So if it's specific, we're talking about increased knowledge about local food deserts. So it's not just, she already had that part, it's not just increased knowledge, it's increased knowledge about the specific thing. Measurable, she's gonna identify a certain number of people, visitors to her website, let's say. Achievable, it's gonna be realistic, she's not gonna say like the whole world. Relevant, obviously relevant to her project, and hopefully she's got in mind that it's gonna be relevant to her goals, her mission, her goals. And then time bound, so she said a specific amount of time that she's gonna do it. Does that make sense? So it's basically just getting you to think about these categories when you're saying, this is what I wanna do, this is what my program's gonna do, okay? So she has a midterm outcome, which is to expand access to food for low-income families. Anybody want to make that a SMART goal?
So she wants to have so many sites visited.
Okay.
Where she might start with 2, she wants to have, so she needs a number.
Okay. So she might say, let's double it.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the rest of them?
In a certain amount of time.
Okay.
You know, from however many months or whatever.
How would she,
Yeah.
how would she track that?
Well, she has, she's tracking the number of meals or food, you know, households served. She's tracking the number of trucks. Maybe she gets another truck. Maybe she has 4 locations now, but in a year she has 8. There are several different ways. So this too, like this still doesn't address how we're going to collect the data, just we need to identify what we're actually measuring. Does that make sense?
Imagine how much food is left over in the truck after this.
That's true. Yeah, she could use that as okay, so long-term impact, she wants to greatly reduce hunger in Hamilton County. Anybody want to make that SMART goal?
Survey? Surveys filled out by, people coming. Like,
Yeah.
as they leave, they have to,
Well, and
That's still the how, so we want to focus on the what.
Like
so let's
percentage.
make this.
yeah, like if she found a percentage before she got started of how many people suffer from hunger, I don't know where that came
We're
from.
assuming there's data out there.
Maybe there's a drop in community kitchen participants.
Okay, yeah, that could be one way to measure it. But what about, how would you make this a goal? So does she say, so let's say the current rate of hunger, however we're measuring that, which we should be more specific because that's one of the things. The current rate of hunger is 22% in Hamilton County.
Reduce it by 10%.
Okay, cool. So that is specific and measurable, hopefully achievable, relevant, obviously to your mission, and then by
2020.
Perfect. All right, so you guys get it. So you go through the process of basically each of those categories to make sure whatever your goal is hitting each of those criteria. Does that make sense? All right, cool. All right, little pop quiz. How can I change the first one? Or, is the first one a SMART goal?
No.
Okay, how do I, yeah, everybody got one. How do we change it into a SMART goal?
We're gonna make it more achievable,
Okay.
and more specific and measurable.
Okay, you want to give an example? I think this was the last example we just did, but, so yeah, something like, the rate is this, we want it to reduce it to this by this amount of time. Cool?
Right.
All right, the second one. Children who attend my program will have higher levels of kindergarten readiness. Is that a SMART goal?
It's not really relevant.
Okay, yeah, it's going to be relevant to some. It might be relevant, not be relevant to others, but let's assume it is relevant. But how can we make it more of a SMART goal?
They need a time, a measure.
Okay, need a time.
Need more specific on what you're measuring.
Yes.
That means changing out readiness and giving it, say, two important qualities.
Sure. So maybe we're talking about whatever I can't remember the
Higher
scale, but
levels
like
of,
literacy and so whatever else. Yeah. Okay. Emotional readiness, let's say. So that would make it more specific. Time bound. Did we say that already? So we need to add a time
And you
frame.
need a way of measuring.
Yeah, and you need to make, well, and another question I have is, higher levels than who? Or what, so what, a different cohort?
Or the previous year.
The previous year, yeah, so there's different ways to look at it, but.
you have to measure the previous year.
Right, that's another tricky part, which we're not getting to the how yet, we're just looking at the what.
Or you can use the same measurement tool that they use to measure the previous year. A lot of times
Yeah.
they measure them when they come in, so you just use the same tool that they use.
Right,
And see if there's a difference.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so you guys are totally getting this. Parents who attend my workshop will read to their children more minutes per day at the end of the program as compared to how many minutes they were reading to their children at the beginning of the program.
That's almost a SMART goal.
The only thing, well, actually, I'll let you. Is there anything you might add?
The time, like when, by?
By the end of the program.
Oh, by the
Yeah,
end of the program, okay.
And X number, like
Exactly.
shoot for a goal. Shoot
Exactly.
for
So how many? 20%.
and
50%,
An increase
whatever.
of 10 minutes.
Right.
I mean, these are working parents who are stressed
Right,
and
right.
do 50 hours a week or more. So-
Right. Exactly. So,
So are you taking that from just what they answer on the survey?
We're not talking about how yet.
Okay.
I know, but your wheels are all turning. You're like, how do we do it? Your wheels are all turning in the right direction. Like, we're getting there next. Like, well, after we do your own logic models, that is where we're going. So, keep your wheels turning because you're on the right track with how you need to be realistic about how you can actually measure these things. And then the last one, youth will behave better. That's a result of my program.
That's
Oh, that's
loaded.
great.
That's
I know,
loaded,
right?
isn't it?
Yeah. How might we make that a SMART goal?
Define behave.
Right, exactly. Define behave.
Define
better.
Define youth. Yeah, exactly. How many youth?
My 21-year-old. No, I'm just
How many youth? Time frame. So maybe the end of the program. I'm sorry.
A specific behavior, like
Behavior. Right. Exactly. That might be a way to do it. Yeah. Yeah.
And as a what result? As the result of what part of the program?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So you guys, I think, are getting it pretty well. Yeah. Any questions about either SMART goals or logic models?
I'm still a little, blurry on logic models, but we'll talk.
It's going to be the next session will just be about logic models, and it'll be your logic models. So hopefully, because it's your program and you know it inside out, like it'll click and make sense. And there's no Swedish chef to like be weird and distract you. So like hopefully it'll be alright. All right. So on that note, you've got a little field work TM, also taken from Toast Runners.
Yeah.
Slash, it's just over. But anyway, this is a blank logic model, okay? Oh, it's up here anyway. So, what you're gonna do, each of you is gonna get one of these, and this is just for practice, really. This is for you to start thinking about your program and what your inputs, activities, outputs, et cetera, are. Do you have a question?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
What if we do already have a logic model?
Then awesome. I mean, hopefully, maybe you can take something from today just to reflect on it and see if there's anything you might want to adjust or change up or anything like that. But, you know, cool. So basically, you don't have to do this whole thing yet. I really want you to focus on your inputs and activities, because those are the things you guys already know inside out. You know what your program is and what it does. So if you guys can just get that nailed down by the next time we meet, that would be great. I also want you to look at your assumptions. So this part right here. And that is really, I just want you to start reflecting on what assumptions are you making about your program? Like, why are you assuming it's gonna work, basically?
Like, maybe be aware of them.
Yeah, exactly, right. And that's the point of taking the time to think about them and write them down. So, if you can just take one of these, I think I might not have enough.
Well, we can just take
Again,
one.
I'm really bad at estimating numbers, so we should be okay.
Will you hand me one of those copies?
Wait, let me get the thing on the back. That's not.
Can you email us some copies?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, okay, I'll do that. It can be a Word document, maybe you can just type in it, will that work?
Ooh, yeah.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll email everybody one, so you have this, but then you'll also have a Word document. It might get a little weird, this formatting, but do the best you can. This is not a formal document. Okay, so we're finishing up, but I just want to make sure and reiterate what we covered, and also we'll have a couple minutes for questions. We learned the what, the why, and vaguely the how of evaluation, but we're going to start really thinking about that more in the next couple of sessions. We learned about logic models and SMART goals. And our next steps are your fieldwork, which you have. Primarily the inputs, activities, and assumptions, part of them, for you to start reflecting on your own program. And then we'll have our smart groups. Well, they are. Small groups where we'll break up, and then we'll develop our own logic models for each of your programs or projects. And then after that, we'll develop our evaluation plan. And we'll talk more about that later. That's basically the how of how are you going to take your